Hi there, and welcome to a brand new year of In the Studio with Matt, Tommy, and Patty Ann Hale. I'm Matt, and here in Asheville today, man, again, another rainy day, but at least it's not cold outside. I'm glad about that.
I'm
So,
freezing.
I always tell all the women in my life, they're like, I'm so cold. I'm like, 30 pounds, honey, just gain 30 pounds, and you'll be just fine. That's what I do to keep it off, stave off the chill. But anyway, welcome to In the Studio today. We're so glad that you're with us. And I know for me, anytime in the fall months and as I'm slowing down from Thanksgiving and Christmas and all that sort of stuff, my mind really starts turning to, God, what do you want to do in this next year and this kind of next season? It's just a good time to kind of detox and think about what's going on. I start journaling a lot more, and how appropriate. That's kind of what we're going to talk about today, is the just kind of moving into the new thing and looking at our new year and all that God's got for us. So I'm excited about today.
Me too. I'm glad to hear that you start in November, because I'm like the week after, or the day after Christmas. Oh my God, it's the end of the year. I've got a plan for next year. So I'm typical artist, procrastinator. Matt is usually very planned and organized. So
I'm trying to change the typical, but that's a whole nother show.
he has
that
a
we'll get
great
into
message on
later.
procrastination.
I'll do it another time.
So yes, I've been since Christmas like, okay, what am I supposed to do for this year? And so many of you out there may be asking the same question. I know as artists we have, I think all the time, it's very typical of artists that we're always needing the new. We're always looking for the new and looking for a new adventure, looking for a new view of beauty, a new way to do life, and so I think this time of year is exciting for me. January is always exciting for me because I think of all the goals that I have
Yeah.
for the year, and with the worship studio, all the things that we have going on this year. It's just very exciting to think about. And so
I love to think seasonally. I think anytime, I guess living in the mountains too, I'm very much aware of things changing, things going into hibernation, that sort of thing. And for me, the winter time and this sort of time of year is that time to kind of pull back a little bit. And even like last week, I was able to be in the studio and just be working and be quiet and work on some new things. And I was talking to, I forget where I was last week, in somebody else's studio, and they were like, I'm doing the same thing. I'm not doing any kind of production work. I'm just able to kind of pull back and experiment and do the things that I've been wanting to do all year, but I haven't had time to do. And then also kind of gear up, for this year. It's amazing that, somebody asked me this week, could you come to our church and speak? And I'm like, well, maybe 2014, but me, I'm like type A, got my whole year already planned, and I'm like, I can schedule you in 3 years, but I'm just kind of built like that, and I know you're not. So
I'm very spontaneous.
We may have a fight on the radio today, but it's going to be a good one anyway. So.
We had a conversation at the art studio before we got here, and we were talking about art, and we were disagreeing on some things as usual. Matt and I usually do not see eye to eye on most things, and so I started looking at the outline for our show today, and I said, we are just set up for a banter turn to an argument right here on air.
I told her, though, I said I have a lot of grace for people that are not right, and that's my pastor's heart coming out, just really caring for people that are not yet there. But right, Patty?
Exactly. Thank you for your mercy,
Yes,
Matt.
yes. That's what I do. That's what I do. So.
So one of the things we want to just talk about today is just this, what it looks like for you, at the beginning of the year, what it may look like. I know, like you said, Matt, it's a real place of hibernation
Sure.
for you. It kind of is like that for me, but also it's just like this real spontaneous kind of place, which kind of drives me crazy because I
Right.
want to have like a plan for the whole year.
Right.
But then it's like something will spark my attention here or grab my attention there. And then I'm off on this journey and I'm like, oh, come back to the plan.
Right.
And so I think that is sometimes what happens with artists that can kind of lead us off of the plan maybe that the Lord wants for us. And so at this time of year, I really try to get in that quiet place, but I really try to listen to the Holy Spirit too, in that spontaneity that comes, like those little sparks of inspiration that come, and that helps me to know where I'm going for the year.
Well, yeah, I think that is, part of being a creative is learning to make that the plan.
Yeah.
Not fighting that as if we're off the plan, but making that plan spontaneity a part of what we do, because it's really, I think, only in those times of freedom where we can disconnect and not be talking to people and just kind of be able to get in the studio and hear the Lord. And that's like the other day I did this piece, which is very atypical of me, which if y'all have seen on Facebook or whatever, is this encaustic piece that I'm doing now, a basket that's kind of lodged in this grapevine pedestal thing with all this nesty stuff around it. And as soon as I made it, I'm like, oh, Pattie's gonna love this. She'll be crying. And sure enough, she was. She called me, oh man, this is great. But where did that come from? It came out of me sitting in the studio, doing some, just meditation with the Lord and everything, listening to music, and out of that came a poem, really, that I wrote. And then out of that poem, I began to just go into my studio and touch materials and see what I kind of responded to. And so, but again, this time of year and hopefully regularly in my life, I give myself the freedom to do that. And that's a big part of, I think, how the Lord does allow us to walk into spontaneity, but in a planned way. We have to make room. We talk a lot about that just from an art perspective. I'm always about, executing things with excellence, and you're always about this spontaneity. And it's both. The fact is that it's both. You have to have mastery of skill. I think our friend Stephen Roach said the other day that spontaneity is the reward of planning or great planning. And I really agree with that. And so I think that this year, hopefully, wherever you are listening to this today, you can begin to plan and make room in your schedule and make room in your time creatively to be creative, to be spontaneous, and really to take the little trips that God's got for you creatively. So
yeah, I think that as I had said, I think that we desire the new a lot as artistic, creative people. We desire the new, we desire adventure, and that's kind of built into the DNA of who we are. And so I think it's also valid to say, though, that has to be kind of reined in a little bit with disciplines,
Sure.
with those times of those quiet times, those times of meditation with the Lord, reading the scriptures and reading books and watching great movies and all of those things that we build in as disciplines in our life. Or else we can just be kind of wacko crazy for a whole year and accomplish a lot of nothing, a lot of nothing. And so I think it helps us in those times of quietness, like right now. It's like you always say that I'm a hatcher, and it's like I have to really get in that place of letting things be birthed, and it comes through spontaneity, but it comes through meditation, it comes through quietness, and to really start to make yourself a plan for the year, to write down some things, to journal a lot during this time of the year especially, and see what the Lord has for you. The most important thing is just to be listening to his voice. And I think this time of year is a great time to just really quieten down and listen to what he has for you this year.
I think a lot of times, for me, I'm in a different position than a lot of people who may listen to this show, who or maybe a hobbyist artist or just somebody that loves to be creative in their relationship with the Lord, who loves to kind of like you started out, just loving to paint and be in music and love that interaction with him creatively. And I think there's a lot of freedom there and beauty there that people, where you don't have to say, okay, this is my voice, this is where I'm going. Whereas somebody like me who is not only doing that, but I'm also making a living from my art as well. So I have to, I'm always sifting, I think is a good way to say it. I'm doing the spontaneous things, and then as I do that and I explore new things, I'm sifting and I'm saying, now what of this that I'm enjoying right now, what of this new that I'm experiencing can I take and incorporate into my voice, into my line that I'm selling, that I'm offering to galleries, that I'm doing whatever. Well, not everybody's in that position.
Right.
Which is a really good thing for a lot of people, because you can do a little bit of this and do a little bit of that and not feel bad about it. And I think one of the things I would encourage people to do this year is kind of figure out what is your creativity about anyway? Is it something that maybe you've never been creative before, and maybe you just want to art journal this year and kind of do that a little bit and begin to step out and take your doodling to the next level and allow the Holy Spirit to speak through that. Maybe you've been selling, like our friend Thomas, who's a growing basket maker. He's a friend of mine. He's been doing it, known about it for like 20 years, but not hardly woven anything in the last many years, and now has been kind of taking some classes with me, wanting to do some things. He's wanting to do his first shows this year. Well, he's in a totally different place than I am. We're selling the galleries and doing a lot of shows and that sort of thing. So there's a little more leeway. So I think helping people to understand where you are and not putting my goals on your life or your goals on my life or
Right.
this is the way to do it, whatever.
Right.
You know, that's a big part again of planned spontaneity.
Right. As I do workshops and have students that I work with that are trying to find their voice, or they're just starting out and they're trying to find that place of like, what am I supposed to be doing or what am I supposed to be saying? One of the first things I suggest to them is to start a visual journal, and I'm mostly working with visual artists, painters, and so in that,
and then eventually they graduate into 3D work, right? I'm trying to prime her a little bit, y'all, but she won't take the bait. So, well, hey, listen, we're already up to the break. We're going quick, so let's take a little break. We'll be right back here on 95.7 The Choice, and I'll be back within the studio. So,
your station, your voice, your choice. 95.7 WGNW.
95.7 The Choice would like to thank Dry Pros for their generous support. Dry Pros has 27 years of experience in the cleaning, restoration, mold remediation, and waterproofing of homes and businesses just like yours. Whether it's a routine cleaning or restoration from flood damage or mold, the team at Dry Pros has the experience to get it done right the first time. Cleaning all types of floors, windows, fine area rugs, and upholstery, they cover it all. For more information, their number is 828-277-9511. That's 828-277-9511, or visit them on the web at www.drypros.com. That's www.drypros.com.
hi, I'm Matt Tommy from the Worship Studio. And if you're an artist, musician, craftsman, or just wanting to grow in your creativity, I'd like to invite you to be a part of the Unlocking the Heart of the Artist weekend experience coming up March 15th through 17th, 2013 in beautiful Black Mountain, North Carolina. This weekend is specifically designed to help creative people just like you embrace their unique God-given design, overcome roadblocks to their creativity, pursue personal wholeness, and share the whole journey with artists from around the country. So for more information or to register online, please visit theworshipstudio.org/unlocking, and we'll see you in March for Unlocking the Heart of the Artist. And you're back with Matt Tommy and Pattie Ann Hale here in the studio in Asheville, North Carolina on 95.7 The Choice. You can always listen to us online at 957thechoice.com or theworshipstudio.org, or check us out on Facebook at facebook.com/The Worship Studio Inc. And you can download all our archives and see what we've been talking about on past shows. This week we're talking about just a lot of great stuff, getting ready for the new year and planned spontaneity, and just how do we really move into in a beautiful way all the great things that God's got for us, and yet not be all harried and disconnected at the same time. So, Pattie, you were talking. So as we ended up about just this whole concept. So why don't you take it to the next level?
I was talking about the students that I have that come along with me, and they're really searching for their voice, searching for what they're supposed to be saying. And I always teach in that direction to, what is it that you're supposed to be saying? And so one of the things I recommend for them is to do a visual arts journal for the year, where they're taking their journal everywhere they go. If they're sitting in a cafe writing a note to a friend in their journal, or writing about a conversation they had, or about what they think about something they read in a book, or taking it to church with them and just doodling during church and catching some of the phrases that come out of the sermon or the worship, just to always have that journal with you. And what begins to develop is people start to see their own symbols, and they start to see their own way of movement, their own way of line and form, and things start to form for them. So I think that's imperative to do as a visual artist, to find what your visual language is. And so I think a lot of artists, as you're beginning this new year, you're like, what do I want to say this year, or where am I going this year? And so your journal will tell you if you will just start to, just very much in a free form kind of way, start to write in there, not with a striving attitude, like I got to figure out what I'm going to say, or I need to make this perfect, I need to work out this sketch, or anything like that. It's just a real way of letting things flow out of your spirit and onto the page.
It's like Julia Cameron says in her book, she talks about morning pages, and just get up every day and write. Doesn't matter what you write, how much you write, just write. And I think just the the discipline, which we don't like to say that word, but the discipline of making time and carrying the journal with you, or beginning to codify what it is that is going on in your mind creatively, beginning to put that down. I love that. I do that. I'm a big journaler, and I also am a big sketcher, and so I'm always sketching. In fact, I said, when I get to be a multi-million-dollar famous artist, they're going to take my workbench and put it in the Smithsonian, because
Amen.
I'm like, yes, Lord. But I have all these great sketches that I'll just grab a pencil or grab a charcoal or something and begin to sketch on my work table. And it's neat for me to go back as I'm walking around and doing things on this huge piece of plywood and see pieces that I've done and sold that have really come to life. And that's a discipline. It's something that helps you to get an idea out. It's amazing as a songwriter, as a writer, all this. It's amazing how many things that you can get immediately, a download from the Lord. And if you don't have the discipline to write it down or to put that somewhere, you'll lose it. And how many great books, how many great pieces of art are just floated off into the ether because an artist did not choose to write that down and hold that somewhere, not just in your mind, but in your, in somewhere where you can do something with it.
Yeah, and that some of the things,
steward it.
Right.
Yeah.
Some of the things you talk about in your book is having those disciplines built into your life
Yes.
of prayer time in the mornings, devotional
Right.
time, of reading the scriptures, of soaking,
Yeah.
just laying on the floor and meditating on
Right.
the Lord and what He's saying to you, and drawing or
Yeah.
doing your art every day.
Right.
Just do something every day.
Right.
In that place, that's where you find out where you already are
That's
a lot of
right.
the times and where you're going. And there is that prophetic nature
Sure.
within that discipline that we thrive on as Christian artists. I think, though I hate that term, but it's a prophetic process of finding out where you are, of self-awareness with what's going on with your, in your own spirit, but what's going on within the heart of God and what He wants to say through you in
Right.
your circle of influence.
Right.
And I think that's very important for people as they're setting goals for this year. You may have a goal to be in a New York City gallery. Yay, I do. But will it happen this year? Probably not.
Right.
So what are my circles of influence this year? And what do they need me to say? And what do I need to say? But what does the Lord want me to say as well? So all three of those things. What are people wanting me to say that are listening to me? What do I need to say for myself, for my own spirit? And then what is God wanting me to say? And how do those three collaborate together to be what I'm going to do this year? And I think that's a good thing that you can do. Maybe you're just, an artist that's kind of starting out, and you have a few people in your church or in your community that like your art. Well, ask those questions. What are they wanting to see from me this year? What do I want to say this year? And what does the Lord want me to do in this circle of influence that I have this year? And so it's important to just to know that for yourself and not put too large of goals on yourself.
Yeah.
Because that can be defeating, and you can come to the end of the year not meeting any of those goals because you set your expectations too high.
Sure.
So I think knowing your realistic expectations is very important.
Right.
So.
I love Michael Hyatt. I get his blog every day, and I don't always get to read it, but he sends this little weekly update, and he's got this thing called creating your life plan, which I, very much is my language, like get the plan, work the plan, be the plan, But I was reading this morning, he's got 3 things that he says as you're kind of crafting a plan for your life, and I think this is very appropriate for what we're talking about just for the year. And, because I say a lot, as you're crafting your life, because obviously our life is an expression of our creativity, and so if our life is bungled up and is too busy, then our creativity is going to have that forced kind of rhythm to it as well.
Right.
And so he says, kind of 3 signposts. I love this. He says, number 1, will it give you clarity about where your life is headed? That is, does this mesh with where I'm going, or is this muddy in the waters for me? Right. Number 2, will it keep you in balance when things get crazy? That is, is this going to be something that's going to take a lot of my time and totally throw me off base, or is this going to be a place where I can come back to solitude, I can come back to balance, I can come back to being rooted and grounded in who I really am? And number 3, will it give you peace of mind, knowing that you're really doing things that matter? And I think for me, I've shared this story a lot, but a number of years ago, Tanya and I, were coming out of a difficult season in our life, and we're closing down an ad agency that I had in Atlanta, and I was working this job and that job, just trying to make money and considering going back into ministry and just, kind of juggling like we all do. And I remember the Lord, as I was, looking for a job, and I'd gotten an offer at a huge church up in New England, 5,000 people on the weekends and all this, and TV and recording studio and blah, 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 blah. And the Lord asked me, he said, is this your DNA? He never said no. And I think the Lord does that as we mature. It's not like, no, don't touch the stove, but it's, well, what do you want to do? Do you really want to do this? And it was at that point in my life that I really began to understand this idea of crafting my life. And the Lord really helped to bring me to this place and Tanya as well, that we said, for me, Tanya's a teacher, so she's very, she gets joy out of the rhythm and out of the regularity. For me, that's not the case, And I said, for me, I need to make a decision in my life that if it's not creative at its core, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to just run after money. I'm not going to run after success. I'm not going to try to make it or whatever. I'm going to do things that feed me spiritually and that feed me creatively, and trust God that that's the way that He's wired me. And that in that, my provision's going to be there, my joy's going to be there, all of that. And you talk about a huge step of faith. I mean, that was a huge step of faith, but I think it just reminds me of this stuff that Michael Hyatt's saying. It's like, do the things that are going to bring you back to your center.
Yeah.
Be able to stay in that place. And when you realize that you're off that place, stop.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, don't keep going down the road that's not taking you to where you want to be and giving you that peace. And the more that we live out of that place, I believe the more that the creativity and the life and light of God can flow through what we do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think another good way to check yourself too in that arena is to realize that your spirit is always in an evolution process. It's always moving forward. It's always moving up. Mm-hmm. It should be.
Right.
Always moving up and moving into more beauty, moving into more of who you're really created to be. Mm-hmm. And so I have a little note in one of my journals too. And every time I'm feeling friction in my life with a relationship, with my art, which is also a relationship with my art, my creativity, with church relationships, with what I'm doing in business, whatever I'm doing, if I'm feeling friction, I pull out that little note, and it's like, who am I?
Yeah.
What are my values?
Right.
Who have I always been, and what have I valued? And does this fit with where I'm going?
That's right.
And it's, some of those just real questions like that make you realize that if something's like totally off, it's probably off.
Yeah.
If it feels totally off, it probably is.
Or if you're striving to try to feel like you're making it happen, or the doors are closing. I always tell people, follow the favor. I mean, God has designed this thing. He wants you to succeed more than you want to succeed.
Yeah.
And so, the paths of the righteous are ordered by the Lord. Commit your ways to the Lord and they'll succeed. I just believe that. And I believe that as we're walking, sure, the enemy's going to try to take us out, but God is for us, and He is continually opening doors. And if we'll learn to keep ourselves in that way, that we can follow His favor, follow the grace, follow the peace in our own life, and follow that inner compass that the Holy Spirit gives us, then our life becomes this beautiful creative expression, and it becomes what I'm passionate about helping people do, which is to integrate the whole thing. You're not a Christian over here and an artist over here and a dad over here, but you are you.
Right.
And you are this beautiful expression of the glory of God. And it's as we pursue that, as we walk this thing out in beauty, that's, I don't know, maybe I'm simplistic, but I believe that's where the glory of God is so much so easily and so beautifully revealed. It's, we were talking this morning, I don't want to pick a fight, but it's kind of like,
yes, you do.
Well, I do like that a little bit, but it's almost like, we spend our lives trying to say so much and do so much and be so much, and God's like, listen, I created you because I love you, and I gave you this beautiful life because I wanted you to enjoy it. And the more that you become fully who it is that you've been called to be, that I've created you to be. It's that famous quote that I love, the glory of God is man fully alive. The more that, and I'm not going into Christian hedonism, but I'm just, the more that you're able to enjoy and fully be who God has created you to be, that's where His glory is revealed in our life. And I think that the most powerful things that will ever be said through our life will be said out of that place.
Yeah.
So,
I agree.
well, hallelujah. Woo!
I do have one point, though.
Of course, of course.
I agree, but I also think that sometimes the Lord lays heavy things on us to say.
Sure.
And those things may be, I think the thing to check is to make sure that they're totally in sync with who am I?
Right.
Is this the evolution process of my spirit? Am I moving in the direction I was already going?
Right.
You check those things, but then there may be these huge things that the Lord's calling you to define or to say, like your book or the book that I'm working on.
Right.
This book that I'm working on is so huge in what it's saying, and everything that I guess I'm saying in it is what the Lord is saying. I feel like for the arts right now.
Right.
And so it's huge. And I'm like, who am I to say any of this? But then it's like, I know that in those places of discipline, when I'm meditating, when I'm reading the scriptures, when I'm looking at art, when I'm reading books and watching movies, I'm seeing this progression keep happening. So I know the Lord is filling my voice up with something to say, and so
because
it's in
an
those
expression
times.
of your life.
Yeah,
it is your authentic
Yes.
voice. It's not
So-
something that you're just trying to do. I think that's what a lot of artists want to do is we say, oh, I want to be like this or paint like that or sound
Yeah.
like this, and we all go through that. But at some point, you got to get with God and find out
Yeah.
who am I.
Yeah,
You
and that
know?
was, before we go to break, one point I wanted to just say is that I think a lot of artists do that at this time. I think a lot of people do that at this time of year. They're looking at the new year, trying to figure out what they want to do this year, and they start looking at other people and saying, oh, I want to be like that, or I want to do what they're doing. And that's not the thing to do. That is the thing that you should run from. Do not even tempt that situation, because the Lord doesn't want you to be like anybody else. He wants you to be like you.
Yeah.
And you'll find those things in those areas of disciplines of those and spontaneity,
Yeah.
the mixture of those.
We'll
So,
talk more about that as we come back today on In the Studio in just a moment.
WGNW 95.7 The Choice, where we believe a song can still change the world.
Programming at 95.7 The Choice is made possible with the generous support of business partners like Area 22 Guitars. Area 22 Guitars is Western North Carolina's only boutique guitar shop. Whether it's an American-made all-tube hand-wired amp like Matchless, Divided by 13, Carr, or Fargen, or a U.S.-built custom luthier electric guitar brand like Anderson, PWE, Zion, Rowan, or Gatto, Area 22 Guitars specializes in the unique needs of the discerning musician. They carry a full line of boutique effect pedals like Keeley, Exotic, Rockbox, Menatone, and Wampler. And their acoustic guitars include Breedlove, Larrivee, Eastman, Bedell, and Crafter. Area 22 Guitars, not your average guitar shop. For more information, go to area22guitars.com or call them at 828-884-2222. That's 828-884-2222.
Where do you turn for Christian concerts and events? Where can you get news from a Christian perspective and encouraging articles written by and about the local Christian community? Turn to the Journey Christian newspaper. Available in print and online. Visit www.journeychristiannews.com or call 828-676-6535. The Journey Christian newspaper. Encouraging Christians on their walk with Christ.
And we're back within the studio with Matt Tommy and Pattie Ann Hale here on 95.7 The Choice. You can always listen to us online at 957thechoice.com or catch us on theworshipstudio.org or on Facebook at facebook.com/The Worship Studio Inc. Lots of great stuff we're talking about this year, kind of starting off the new year, getting our plan, working the plan, be the plan. I love the plan. Pattie's like, be spontaneous. I'm like, plan some spontaneity.
it's so funny. It's so funny in our working with the worship studio how it's like you're like, I want this, this, and this, and then I'm like, okay, I'll plan all the details, and like I put all this plan together, and then you're totally off in left field without following the plan, and I'm like, okay, let's be spontaneous, let's go there.
Even for the show, see, Pattie does all this work preparing what we're going to talk about, and we're riding over here, and she's like, have you looked at all this? I'm like, no. I was like, just let me walk with this, because I'm good. I'm like good in the moment, It's like I don't know. I'm like, oh,
I think you're just confused.
I'm
You
just
like the
confused
plan,
because
but
I like the plan gives me comfort, but at the same time, I'm like, just let me be, let me do what I want to do.
I'm totally
so.
like that too. You
Exactly.
said at dinner we were out. Wayne and I and Matt and Tanya at dinner yesterday after church, and Matt said something like, "Well, I am just like you." And
Right.
it was like I told Wayne, I said, "I'd be the happiest woman in the world if you would be just like me." And Matt said, "Well, I'm just like you, and you're not happy."
And you're not happy with me, so I said, well, so there you go, Wayne.
So we are a lot alike in that way too. It's like the plan
That's
gives
right.
you comfort.
That's right.
But you love the spontaneity at the same time. And so I think that's typical of all artists. It's like make a plan. This time
is.
of year,
Like I
make a
taught,
plan, but be spontaneous. Go with the flow as well.
I taught Old Testament one time at a church I was at. We had an internship program with like 18 or 20 interns, and so they had me teaching Old Testament, which I don't even know how that happened. And so I would prepare and everything, but I would get the best stuff. I started recording it because as I was teaching, I would get the best revelation. I'm like, where was this when I was planning,
Yeah.
But I think that's the beauty of the artistic, the creative mind, and of the Spirit of God, that it is this, we do plan, we do give, God is all about form and structure and that sort of thing, but yet in that, this whoosh of the Spirit can happen. And if we ever lose either one,
Exactly.
this form and the power, somebody said, if you have only the Word of God, you dry up. If you have only the Spirit of God, you blow up. But if you have the Word and the Spirit, you grow up.
Yeah.
And I think that's true in our creative life as well. We're always balancing this thing with planning versus spontaneity, with experimentation versus doing the things that we know we can execute with great skill. And that's the balance. Is the wonderful tension that is life in the Spirit,
Yeah.
and especially for us artists. So.
Yeah. I know I
See,
saw
even that
at-
was good. I'm like, we should write that down. That should go in the book
Woohoo,
somewhere.
that was great.
Okay, keep going. So,
At Gathering this past year, I have a very specific plan for my workshops, but in every one of my workshops, within the plan, the Lord showed up in these amazing ways.
Right.
Like we were doing a drawing class, and I was showing them the river, and we were looking at form. Well, what began to happen was this beautiful atmosphere of worship as people were looking at the river, and it became this flow with the Spirit, which was what I wanted them to capture anyway, was
Right.
how to capture the flow of the Spirit in your drawing and make it expressive drawing. How to, as Kandinsky says, how to draw or to paint or create from that inner place. What's moving within you
Yeah.
in the Spirit, within your own spirit, within the deep unto deep place where the Holy Spirit calls
Right.
unto you. What is happening in that, and how can you pour it out on a canvas or sing it in a song or put it into a film? How can you release that from that inner place? And so in the workshops, it was just amazing that I had this. I felt like it was a total download from the Lord in the planning stage.
Yeah.
But then He surprised me, so it wasn't boring to me. And so I think that's important as you're looking at planning for your year. Get a general plan, but know that He's gonna make that beautiful. That
That's right.
by September, it's not going to be boring.
Right.
It's
He'll
going to
breathe
be.
in it,
He'll
right.
keep breathing. Yeah.
Right.
He'll keep breathing into it. He'll keep surprising you,
Yeah.
giving you those little surprises
Yeah.
that fit within that. And when they don't, and it feels like a surprise, that's when you do what you do. Does
Right.
this really fit?
Exactly.
Is this going to muddy the waters? Is this
Yeah.
going to take me away from what I'm really supposed to be doing?
Right.
And I know I am so spontaneous that I can get caught
Mm-hmm.
by so many things, whether it be commitments to other people,
Right.
relationships. I just want to do so much that sometimes, and I do have a big pastor's heart, so
Right.
it's like, I really want to help everybody that has need,
Right.
and so when need
That's
presents
like the
itself.
other day we were meeting with some folks, and it was a great meeting. And before we left the meeting, Pattie had volunteered to redo the whole ministry and start out this whole thing. We're gonna get 50 artists to come down here, and God's gonna change the world and redemptive purposes of Appalachia. I mean, it was just, And we got in the car, and I said, "What are you doing?" I said, "Oh, but I know we're supposed to." And I'm like, "Girl, just calm down." So it's both. I think that's the other thing about having people in your life. I mean, we actively say both of our spouses are such beautiful balances to
Yeah.
and regulators in our life that
They keep our feet to the ground.
they do, and it's a beautiful, beautiful relationship. And I think as you're looking this year of what God's wanting to say through your work and wherever He wants to take you in your spiritual life and your creativity, to not just think that you have to run off in the secret place and get these huge visions and then just take off by yourself. Everything that God calls you to do, He calls you to do within the context of community.
Yeah.
And none of us have the whole piece. I mean, I think that's hard for artists. I mean,
Yeah.
we always think that the way that we get it and the way that we see it in our mind is the way, when in reality, most of the time, it's a piece of what God's wanting to say. And that's why we're just so passionate at the worship studio about community, of being able to bring it. And it's kind of like, in the New Testament, you bring what you have and you lay it at the apostles' feet, And I think in a healthy community, we do that collectively.
Yeah.
We say, here's my piece, how does this match up with everything else? And it's together that we get in the mind of the Lord. There's wisdom in the counsel of many, and that's a beautiful place that if we can learn to walk in that. It ain't easy, though.
No, because it involves the struggle with pride and humility.
Yeah.
I mean,
I've heard
really
some people can deal with that. I never really have dealt with pride at all. In fact, I'm one of the most humble people that I know. I liken myself to Moses, in fact, that he said Moses, it says in the Bible that he was one of the most he was the most humble man that ever walked the face of
I should stop you
the
now.
earth. Well, I love that about Moses because he wrote that, and it was okay. Go ahead and stop me. I was taking a tangent, but anyway.
Oh, where do we go from there?
I know.
Community brings humility.
That's right.
We need a sozo minister.
That's right.
But yes, community brings humility, and it brings an ease. It really brings an ease to what we're called to do, because realizing that we have to depend on other people. That's the humility part. But realizing that we can depend on other people, that's the beauty of it.
Yeah.
And so there's a search for that all the time within our relationships. And I think I'm in a season in my life more than ever of really, probably, I guess since college, I've never experienced this feeling of working with other people and having to rely on other people. In college, we always had that because we're always collaborative kind of projects and that kind of thing. But just the collaboration with other people in order to at least in a small scale for where we are, our circle of influence, what does our culture look like? Because you're developing a culture in your creativity, the very things that you create, but you're also creating a culture by the way you treat people and the way you're interacting with people. And so I think community is a huge part of culture changing, know. And so I just want to bring up this point about Kandinsky again. Of course, you hear me talk about him all the time.
He was a basket maker, wasn't he?
No. He could have been a very wild basket maker, though, I'm sure. But he really...
I think he aspired to be a basket maker, but he got stuck in painting. No, I'm just kidding. But
he was really about movement a lot.
Right. We can agree on that.
We can agree on that.
That's right.
But he wrote this book called Concerning the Spiritual in Art. And he talks about, and I think it was around the 30s when he wrote this, and he was the father of abstract, modern art, non-objective art. And so he had these theories that most people don't know of. They know of his work, but they don't know of his theories. And his theories were that, one of his theories was that artists are catalysts for an evolution of culture. I keep using that word evolution, and I don't mean it in the way we don't like it as Christians. I just mean that process, that forward movement.
Right. Always growing, always changing.
Yes, always changing, moving, growing. And he believed that artists were catalysts for that. And he presents this triangle of culture, and that that artists are in that top part of the triangle, not in an elite kind of way, because it takes great humility to be in the top part of that triangle. Right. Yes, as a servant to the world, as a servant to who sees your work. And so that as catalysts of the culture, they're in that top part of the triangle, and the rest of culture are in that bottom part, and that it's the job of the artist to keep pushing into the heavens, keep pushing into the place of the Spirit, to see what the Lord is wanting to say. Because if you look at art throughout history, the Lord has always been speaking. He's been saying amazing things, and there's been this process. Just like we look at it for ourselves. Does this fit my process? Does this fit my evolution, the evolution of my own spirit? The same thing with art. Does it fit the evolution of what the Lord's been doing in the arts? Is where I'm going just a side note to where the Lord's going, or are we within that flow? Are we
Right.
within that triangle? Are we in the top part of the triangle? Are
Right.
we pushing into the heavens? And so this is where we were hitting points this morning of talking about this, where we didn't agree. So
Well, I think also rarely is anything great that's ever said in art just a result of the work, but it's really a result of what we've been talking about this morning, is this crafted life of
Yeah.
this full expression that it is. The art is always, I think, great creativity is always the overflow of what it is that's happening in your life. You know, I love to be in solitude. I love to be in nature. I connect with God in that way, and so my work is a very visceral response to that. You know, it evokes that emotion. It evokes the movement of the spirit when you see my work. And so it's not just that I'm a basket maker, but it is that the expression of my life is contained and expressed in this stuff that I do. And I think that's where the real power comes. That's, again, why I'm so passionate about, we both are, of helping people connect who you are with what you do. It is not either or. You cannot be an artist over here and be a Christian over here, and never the two shall meet.
Right.
It's got to be this integration. And I think, so it's in that point, it's at that point that we can authentically touch heaven.
Right.
And be this beautiful conduit and catalyst in culture. Otherwise, we're just trying to do art for art's sake, or we're trying to copy somebody else, or we're just trying to say something that's ultimately meaningless because it carries no power. It's the form
Right.
without the power.
Yeah.
And we always want to be about touching God and touching the earth, and doing that in a way that is authentically who we are, you know, out of the voice He's given us at this
Right.
time.
I think that it's very important to see who you're running with. You know, who are the people that are in your life, and what are you saying collectively? You know, all of the great art movements started out of almost in a rebellious kind of way, in a revolution kind of way, where they saw that they were doing something than everyone else were doing, and they were like, we need to give voice to this. And so
Right.
that's what the point that you had said earlier
Just a
about
holy discontent,
sometimes the
right.
more you try to say something, but if you're saying it out of the passion of your heart, then it can start a movement. It
Sure.
can move that triangle further
Right.
and bring culture with it. And so that's what I'm really excited about, is just
Well, the
seeing
prophetic
that.
nature, I think, too, of artists. I mean, you know, you look at the prophets in the Old Testament; they were always the one that were out front and doing things in a way that everybody else was like, "You're nuts, you're crazy," and yet God was on it.
Yeah.
And it was, you know, not everybody got it. You know, that's, I think we take ourselves too seriously sometimes, because we're always wanting to be, you know, all of us want to say something and be something, and, you know, and yet, you know, when has the art world really ever gotten anybody in their generation? You know, it's most of the, and prophets as well, it's most of the time after we're gone, after the work is sitting there, after the writings are there, the people are like, you know, that guy really, I think God was on that, or
Yeah.
in a way. And I think now we are seeing this acceleration of the Spirit, where God is doing things. You know, the sower, the reaping is overtaking the sowing. You know, and we are seeing an acceleration. And I do pray that the things that we're wanting to see would come in our generation, not just have to be,
Yeah.
you know, after we're dead and gone. Because, you know, I'm not as old as you are, but but I
go
still
again.
have a long time to go. So, well, you know, with that, Patty's about to get out the frying pan and knock me over the head. So,
I am an Appalachian woman.
that's
You-
right. She's going to be 30 this month, and so we
30,
need to.
that sounds
That's
nice.
right. See, I'm trying to be nice. So, anyway, well, hey, we'll be back in just a moment with our last segment here on In the Studio.
WGNW 95.7. The Choice.
Hello, listeners. This is Aggie, the Italian cookie lady, and I am proud to support 95.7 The Choice. Whether it's a wedding, anniversary, or birthday, we have the perfect dessert for you. From cookies to cannolis, cakes, pastries, the Italian cookie lady is here to satisfy your sweet tooth. We use only the finest ingredients and family recipes. For more information, go to ItalianCookieLady.com or call me at 828-553-5295, and remember to mangia.
Hi, I'm Matt Tommy from the Worship Studio. And if you're an artist, musician, craftsman, or just wanting to grow in your creativity, I'd like to invite you to be a part of the Unlocking the Heart of the Artist weekend experience coming up March 15th through 17th, 2013 in beautiful Black Mountain, North Carolina. This weekend is specifically designed to help creative people just like you embrace their unique God-given design. overcome roadblocks to their creativity, pursue personal wholeness, and share the whole journey with artists from around the country. So for more information or to register online, please visit theworshipstudio.org/unlocking, and we'll see you in March for Unlocking the Heart of the Artist. And we're back here in the studio with Matt Tommy and Pattie Ann Hale here on 95.7 The Choice. If you've just catching us right now, you can always go back to the archives on 957thechoice.com, catch some of our other shows or the first part of this show, or definitely connect with us on Facebook at facebook.com/The Worship Studio Inc. Over 1,000 artists now from all over the world that are there in our Facebook community, collaborating, asking questions all the time, and it's a great opportunity just to get in the mix and be a part of what God's doing as He's raising up this army of artists to reveal His glory in the earth. You know, before we get into some questions from Facebook or from our Facebook group, I just want to encourage you. One of the things I hope that you'll do this year as you're kind of planning your year is plan to be with us for one of our retreats. We don't just do conferences for conference's sake, a bunch of talking heads, but we do weekend events that are really tailored to build community among artists, to really help take you to the next level, hear the voice of the Lord, and learn how to integrate His voice and your expression together in your creativity. And so you heard about Unlocking the Heart of the Artist coming up in March. There's also Gathering of Artisans coming up this fall. And you can always find out all about that on theworshipstudio.org, and be sure to be with us for one of those events. So, well, hey, we got some good questions. Pattie said we got a lot. So I told her, I said, we got to keep with the schedule. My old Methodist upbringing's coming out. We got to keep on the clock. So let's see how many of these we can get through today.
Well, one of the things that one of our members of our group asked was how to keep your art as a priority when you're maybe working another job and you only have a certain amount of time for your art. How to keep that how to keep it on the on the front burner, rather than letting it slip and only touching a canvas or writing a song every few months. How do you manage that?
It's funny. Tanya saw these. My wife saw this on the Facebook group the other day, and she's like, "I hope you and Pattie are not going to try to answer that because y'all have no clue." She's like, "Y'all don't work a job. She said, y'all are just these free floating people that kind of moved by the Spirit."
I need to tell my little story with Wayne. I was leaving from the house, and I always carry cash all the time, and so I told my husband, I was like, "Well, honey, I think I need some money before you leave." He was leaving to go to work. I said, I think I need some money before you leave, or maybe I have some. Do I have some money?" And he said, "Well, have you worked?" Because he's very sarcastic and very much, he's very funny as well. And he was like, "Well, have you worked?" And it hurt my feelings. And so I left mad. And then when I got to the studio, a painting sold. And so I sent him a nice little text that says, "See, I work." And I said, "But more importantly, God works."
That's right. And I got my own money.
Got my own money now.
Well, I think it, obviously there have been seasons in both of our lives where we've been creative and held a job or worked in a more traditional setting. And I think it goes back again to having that measuring stick of understanding who God has created me to be and what are those important things in my life, and communicating those to the people that are in your life. If you're an artist and your spouse is not on board with that expression of your life, you're going to have a hard time.
True.
Because your spouse and your kids, the people that you're in a relationship with, if you're not married, if you're single, your friends, they've got to understand that this is not just something you do, but this is a valid, important expression of how God's created you, and you need time for that.
Yeah.
And whether it's getting up a little earlier in the morning, staying up a little late at night, taking your lunch hour, doing the things to craft. How many people just go home and veg in front of the TV?
Yeah.
We've been just turning off the TV lately at our house and reading and talking and playing Legos and that kind of thing with Cameron. My little boy's 9, and it's just amazing. And so I think, again, just being intentional about crafting that time, however your schedule is busy. Because I've learned this over the years. People do what they want to do.
Yeah.
People pay for what they want to pay for. People spend time on what they want to spend time on. And if your creativity is something that God's leading you in, You just got to make time for it.
Yeah, I remember when I first decided to be a professional artist, I had quit my job as gallery director. Corey was, my firstborn was about a year old, and I decided to quit work, and which I was working a full-time schedule, decided to quit work and just be a professional artist and raise him at home and be home with him. And I remember that I needed a babysitter so that I could have time to do my artwork. And I remember saying to Wayne's family and to my family, you know, this is my job now. This is what I'm doing. And I had to fight for that.
Yeah.
I had to fight for that, to say, this is work. This is what I'm doing. Don't call me at this time, and don't, you know, unless it's an emergency, don't call me this time. No, I can't go run an errand for you. No, I'm in the studio painting.
I'm at home watching Montel.
Yes, I'm at home. I'm painting and I'm working, and this is my job. And, you know, I had to really, that was hard for me because Corey was like my life when he was born. He was my firstborn, and I wanted to give him all my attention, but I had to realize, no, I have to work this job. You know, even if it's at home, a studio at home, this is time that I have to commit to that. And I went the extra mile too. You know, I had a couple of days that I had a babysitter, so I would paint all day, and I would get up at like 5 o'clock in the morning and paint for 2 hours before he woke up. And you know, when he napped, instead of me going to take a nap like I did when he was first born, I would spend that time painting. And there were times when I would have him right on my lap with me, and he would paint with me. You know, and so you learn to integrate it with your life. I homeschooled my kids most of their years up until now, and so I always built in ways that I could be creative and ways that I could teach them to be creative within our schooling situation. And so building it into your life is important.
Again, integration. That's Cameron's 9. He's been going out with me to harvest kudzu from the time he could walk out there by himself. I've got more videos of him sliding down kudzu hills, and I look back at those times, and it's like those are such special memories, and yet they're important to me, they're important to him, and it's a way to integrate our life. So
yeah, exactly. Not compartmentalizing your art and your family, but put them together. I've always had Wayne's support in such beautiful ways. I mean, he knows how to frame, he knows how to run business situations for me, all these things that he's always come together as a supporter of my art, and it's been amazing. And that was because in the early years I had to fight for it, though. I had to say, this is important to me enough to I'm never going to stop being an artist. I am nothing but an artist. I can't be anything but that. And so everything that we did all these years, you know, 20 plus years, has been centered around creative things, and my children are that way. And it can look as simple as, you know, if you have to go out and get dinner on a weekend night, well, go somewhere creative, go somewhere where they're playing music, you know, go somewhere where you can catch a really cool movie that's not playing at the normal theater, but go to some little swanky theater, you know, downtown somewhere. Get into creative atmospheres as much as you can in your life, in the normal things that you have to do.
Build it into the rhythm of your life.
If you're going grocery shopping, don't go to Walmart. Go to Earth Fair or somewhere. You know, just do
and
things
pay
like
3
that.
times as much, right?
I don't recommend that.
That's right.
Here's one for Matt. Rather than going to Walmart and paying retail, go to the Goodwill and hunt for treasures.
That's a whole other thing. I see, that's one of the things that I say no to. I'm like, I don't like to hunt. I like to walk in, buy quality, buy it quick, get out, get on what I want to do.
We should do a whole show on Goodwill and thrift store shopping.
Oh, no. That's just, I do not.
You guys vote for it on Facebook if you want me to do a show like that. I'll have to bring in Heather Dean or something to be with me.
The thrill is gone away. All right, next question. We got like 1 more minute, 2 more minutes.
Next question. This is about, like when you went through a creative slump, you know, and as we all do.
I've heard about those.
Yeah, like a creative block, or just I like the way she posed this question, a creative slump. How to recover from that, how to jump back in and get busy again, not in a way just to be busy, but to really feel productive in the way of the Spirit as well.
You know, I think it kind of goes back to, we didn't mention it in the last segment, but you were just recently at a seminar and telling about a lady that was saying how she was not emotionally connected to her work, that she was just kind of going through the motions. And I think that we can all get in that place where we're just doing the stuff. And I'm the first person that will say, if you want to get better at what you do, you want to get through slumps, you just got to be in the studio and do the work. It's just part of doing that. But there's also that place where you do need to disconnect and disconnect from just the monotony of being in the studio all the time, and go on an adventure. Go on and do something that will kind of light that part of you up again, that will wake up the dreamer inside of you. And, for us as believers, that can be as easy as going to spend some time with the Lord, or it may be going to do something that's totally outside the box. Go listen to music, or go to a concert, or go walk in the woods like I do, or just go downtown and we call them creative dates. We're always encouraging people to do that, to do something that stimulates you out of the normal and out of the monotonous, and through that it wakes up our spirit, and hopefully, if we're listening, we begin to get new inspiration. Because I think the key in this is, don't let yourself get so far in a slump that it's almost impossible to recover. Live in that sensitive place. Where you can realize, I'm not hitting it right now. Let me go back to the well here and get juiced up a little bit so I can get back in the flow.
We talk a lot in our creative group that meets on Monday nights at the studio. We talk a lot about filling up that well, of continually hunting for the beauty. And so, but it can be real practical too. It can be like, clean your area, clean your creative area, your studio, or if it's your dining room table, pull out some things and make it messy. Just change your atmosphere.
That's hallelujah.
Just change your atmosphere. I think that's a big clue. I'll hand you a broom next time you need to change your atmosphere.
See, that's the other thing. Like, I have a lot of different brooms. I have big brooms, little brooms, but I'm like, when it actually gets to the pushing of the broom, that's what. I like to make piles. That's what I like to do, make big piles. Okay, never mind. So, we're floating away here.
I'll tell a little story about this. I would like to kind of visit about that lady at the seminar. I was at the seminar in Charlotte, and there was a lady there. We were talking about how to write your artist statement, and the seminar instructor was saying, you have to be emotionally connected to your work. You have to be saying something emotionally, or in our case, we would say spiritually, with your work. You have to be saying something and be connected to it. And it has to be about the adventures of your life. And so we were talking about that process, and she said, I have really great work, and I think it's as far as I could go technically, with skill, and everybody really loves my work, but I have such a hard time marketing myself because I don't really have anything to say about my work. And she said, I don't think I have any adventures. And I'm sitting there going, oh, how sad.
I'm like, girl, I got a book for you.
I am just like, so sad. And I'm thinking, is she really an artist?
Yeah.
Because you can do the stuff and not really be an artist, because the expression, I think, is what makes it art. And he said, the first thing he said was, well, girl, go get you some adventures.
Yeah.
And that adventure can look as simple as, going to a new shop, or going to a new place to eat, or the things that you have to do in life. And I'll tell this story, and I guess we can end with that because we're running out of time. My friend Heather Dean, who also helps me some, she does some assistant work with me at the worship studio.
You're famous now, Heather. You're on the radio.
Hello,
baby.
Heather Dean. Shout out to you. And so she came to the studio one day, and we were behind on some projects, and I had worked all week with administrative stuff, all week at the computer. I had not done one creative thing. And she came down and was like, okay, I'm ready to get started. And I'm like, let's go get something to eat. Let's go downtown. And so we came down to Lexington Avenue, which is the coolest place in Asheville. And we ended up in this little shop. I said, let's just blow the day. I need this. I need to just get out away from the computer. This can wait till next week. And we went to this little shop where there was an artist that repurposes clothing, and she makes the funkiest bohemian clothing that we both just loved. Of course, I loved. It was just like, it was just so amazing. So I can't remember the name of it, but shout out to you as well. You're on Lexington Avenue. You have an amazing store. And it inspired me so much. And another thing, we went was to a bead shop, and we looked at the beads and just picked up all those beads and felt the textures, and it just enlivened me. I was in the studio the next morning with cloth and my sewing machine, and making handbags and just following that whim, just following that whim of where I needed to go. Now, are those handbags going to be a part of my voice or part of what I'm going to market? Probably not. But it was like what I needed to do because I had touched something that was new that day, and I needed to find an expression that was my own from that.
That's right. So whatever this year it looks like for you, we just want to encourage you, have an adventure, do some of these things that we're talking about, really be everything that God's created you to be this year. And we look forward to you being with us again here on In the Studio. Bye-bye.